My parents made my 8-year-old eat leftovers in the kitchen while everyone else had the Thanksgiving feast. My dad said, "Your mom is a failure, so you eat like one." My daughter didn't cry. She quietly walked to her backpack, pulled out an envelope, and said, "Grandma left me a letter that says." My parents' faces went pale. The dining room went completely silent. 43 people stopped eating. My father's fork hit his plate with a sound that seemed to echo. My mother's hand froze mid-reach for her wine glass. I watched the color drain from both their faces in real time, starting at their foreheads and spreading down like someone had pulled a plug. My daughter stood there, 8 years old in her navy dress with the white collar, holding that cream-colored envelope with my late grandmother's distinctive cursive across the front. The envelope I'd given her that morning with very specific instructions about when to present it. Let me tell you how we got here. I grew up as the forgettable middle child in a family that valued appearances above everything else. My older brother Derek was the golden child, Harvard MBA, married to a corporate lawyer, two perfectly behaved kids who played lacrosse. My younger sister Amanda was the creative darling, gallery showings in Manhattan, featured in Architectural Digest, married to a venture capitalist. And then there was me, Sarah, the one who went to state school. The one who worked in some kind of consulting thing that my parents never quite understood or cared to ask about. My mother introduced me at parties as our daughter who's still figuring things out. I was 37 years old. I'd been figuring things out for 2 decades, according to her. Christmas 2019, my father announced Derek would be taking over the family's commercial real estate holdings, worth approximately $4.2 million in assessed value. "Derek has the head for business," my father said, raising his scotch. "It needs someone serious." I was sitting right there at the table. I'd been working in corporate restructuring for 11 years. Easter 2021, my mother gave Amanda $75,000 as a creative investment for her studio expansion. When I mentioned I was looking at purchasing a condo, my mother literally laughed. "On your salary? Sarah, be realistic." I was making $140,000 a year at that point. She assumed I was still making entry-level wages. June 2022, my father pulled me aside at Derek's daughter's graduation party. "You know, it's not too late to go back to school. Get a real degree. Maybe something in teaching? You were always good with kids." I had an MBA from UC Davis. He'd never asked. But here's what they didn't know. What none of them knew. I'd been building something. Quietly. Carefully. For 3.5 years. It started in January 2020 when a former colleague, Janet Martinez, called me. She'd left corporate consulting to start a specialized firm focusing on sustainable commercial property conversion, taking outdated office buildings and retrofitting them for mixed-use developments. The green building movement was exploding. Companies were desperate to update their portfolios to meet new environmental standards and attract younger tenants. "I need someone who understands both the finance side and the operational implementation," Janet said. "I can offer you $85,000 base plus 15% equity." I took the meeting. I didn't take the job. Not exactly. Instead, I spent 3 months learning everything I could about the sustainable commercial real estate market. I used my existing consulting network to identify the biggest pain points. I discovered that most firms were either design forward with no implementation capability, or they were construction companies with no strategic vision. There was a gap. By April 2020, I'd filed the Articles of Incorporation for Meridian Sustainable Development Solutions, LLC. I was the sole member. I kept my consulting job and worked on Meridian at night and on weekends. My parents thought I was struggling. I was building. I brought in my first client in July 2020, a small property management company in Sacramento that needed help converting a 1970s office building into mixed-use space. Contract value, $125,000. I subcontracted the specialized work and managed the project. We came in under budget and ahead of schedule. The building achieved LEED Gold certification. They referred me to 2 other companies. By December 2020, I had registered contracts worth $340,000. I'd hired 2 part-time consultants. I'd filed for S-Corp status to handle the tax implications. Thanksgiving 2020, my mother asked what I was doing for work. Still the same consulting thing, I said. She nodded and changed the subject to Amanda's upcoming gallery show. I'd invoiced $280,000 that year through Meridian. My mother assumed I was barely scraping by. The business grew. January 2021, I landed a contract with a regional developer, 6 buildings across Northern California, full sustainability retrofits with certification management. Contract value, $890,000 over 18 months. I quit my consulting job in March 2021. My parents thought I'd been laid off. My father actually sent me a check for $3,000 with a note that said, "To help you get through the rough patch." I deposited it. Sent a thank you card. Didn't correct him. By August 2021, I'd hired 4 full-time employees. I'd moved Meridian into actual office space in downtown San Jose, 2,400 square feet, $6,800 monthly lease. I'd established relationships with 3 major construction firms and 2 architectural groups that specialized in sustainable design. September 2021, family dinner at my parents' house. My sister was talking about a commission she'd gotten $180,000 for a private residence installation. My mother actually gasped. "Amanda, that's wonderful." "Sarah, did you hear that? Maybe Amanda can give you some career advice." Meridian's revenue that quarter was $310,000. I'd just signed a contract with a commercial REIT for $1.2 million over 2 years. "That's amazing, Amanda," I said. "I'm really proud of you." My mother smiled at me like I was a child learning to be supportive. The close calls started becoming more frequent as Meridian grew. November 2021, I ran into my father's business partner, Gerald, at a conference in San Francisco. I was there presenting on sustainable retrofitting strategies for Class B office properties. Gerald was attending as part of his continuing education requirements. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" he asked. "Oh, just checking out some sessions," I said. "Trying to stay current." "On commercial real estate development?" He looked genuinely confused. "You never know when information might be useful," I said. He nodded slowly, clearly trying to figure out if I was dating someone in the industry. He never connected that I might actually be working in it. I watched him walk away, then gave my presentation to 340 industry professionals an hour later. The conference program listed me as Sarah Chun, founder and principal, Meridian Sustainable Development Solutions. Gerald never looked at the program. February 2022, close call number 2. My mother needed help moving some furniture and called me on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. I was in a meeting with the VP of operations for a major property management company, negotiating terms on a $750,000 contract. "Sarah, can you come over?" "I know you're probably not doing anything important." I muted my phone. Finished the contract negotiation. Got the signature. Then called her back. "Sorry, Mom. I was in the middle of something." "What did you need?" "Oh, never mind. I got your sister's assistant to help. You know how busy Amanda is. I just closed a contract worth more than my sister made in a year." "That's great, Mom. Glad it worked out." May 2022, the closest call. My father wanted to have lunch. He'd been talking to someone who knew someone who worked at a company called Meridian something and thought maybe they could give me a job interview. It's sustainable building stuff, which I don't really understand, but apparently they're hiring. "I can make a call." I sat across from him at the restaurant Buca di Beppo, $18.95 lunch special, and watched him try to help me get a job at my own company. "That's really kind of you, Dad," I said. "Let me think about it." "Don't think too long," he said. "Opportunities don't wait forever. You're not getting any younger, and at some point, employers are going to wonder why you've been drifting for so long." I was 36 years old. I employed 17 people. Meridian's annual revenue was projected to hit $2.8 million that year. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. He paid for lunch with his American Express Gold Card and told me to hang in there. I went back to the office and met with my accountant to discuss establishing a profit-sharing plan for employees and setting up a more sophisticated tax strategy for handling the revenue growth. But I kept building. kept quiet. There was something important about proving it all the way first. About getting to the point where it couldn't be dismissed as luck or a fluke or something that would fall apart. By January 2023, Meridian had 22 employees. We completed projects worth $4.7 million. I'd been featured in Greenbuild Magazine and Western Real Estate Journal. My LinkedIn profile had 2,400 followers. My parents still thought I was between things. I'd purchased a condo in Los Gatos in March 2023. Cash. $615,000. 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, view of the hills. My mother had asked where I was living, and I'd said I was renting a place in the area. She nodded sympathetically and said something about how hard it must be to see my sister's success. My daughter started 2nd grade in September 2023. My parents sent her a card with a $20 bill inside and a note that said, "To help your mom buy you nice things." Then my grandmother died. October 14, 2023. My father's mother, Evelyn Chin. She was 91 years old and sharp as glass until the day she had the stroke that killed her. Grandma Evelyn had always been different with me than the rest of the family. She'd ask real questions. "What kind of consulting do you do, Sarah? What are you working on? Tell me about your clients." She was the only one who actually listened when I talked about work. I'd visited her every Sunday for 3 years. We'd have tea. She insisted on loose-leaf Darjeeling, $24 per tin from the specialty shop downtown, and I'd tell her about Meridian, about the projects, about the challenges of scaling a business while maintaining quality. She'd worked as a bookkeeper for 40 years and understood business in a way my father, who'd inherited his company from his father, never had. "You're building something real," she told me in August 2023, 2 months before she died. "Don't let them make you small." The will reading was scheduled for November 18, 2023. My father was absolutely certain he was getting the majority of her estate, probably $400,000 in savings and investments, plus her house in Palo Alto, worth about $1.8 million. But that's not how the story really started accelerating. The catalyst was different. I didn't know it yet, but my grandmother had been making her own plans. And she'd been watching my family more carefully than any of us realized. The will was going to matter, but something else was going to happen first. Something that would make Thanksgiving 2024 the day everything came out. Because 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, my father made an announcement that forced my hand. It was November 12, 2024. Tuesday evening. My father called a mandatory family meeting at his house, the 4-bedroom colonial in Saratoga that my mother had redecorated 3 times, most recently for $140,000. Everyone had to be there. Derek and his wife Jessica. Amanda and her husband Craig. Me and my daughter Emma. No exceptions, my father said on the phone. This is important family business. I arrived at 6:47 p.m. My father's Lexus LS 500 was in the driveway next to Derek's Tesla Model X. Amanda's Range Rover was parked on the street. I pulled my Honda Accord 3 years old, paid off, into the last spot in the driveway. The house smelled like my mother's signature candles from Anthropologie, $42 each. She bought them in sets of 6. Everyone was already in the living room. Derek sat in the leather wingback chair like he owned the place. Amanda was on the couch with Craig, looking artistically disheveled in $300 distressed jeans. My father stood by the fireplace. He dressed up, button-down shirt, actual slacks. This was serious. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "I wanted to share this with the family all at once. I've made a significant decision about the future of the business." My mother was practically glowing. She'd positioned herself next to the built-in shelves where she displayed her crystal collection, $12,000 worth of Waterford that no one was allowed to touch. "As you all know, I've been running Chin Commercial Properties for 34 years, my father continued. The business has grown significantly. Our current portfolio is valued at approximately $8.7 million. Annual revenue from rentals and property management fees is roughly $340,000. Derek sat up straighter. He knew what was coming. "I've decided it's time to begin transitioning leadership. Effective January 1st, Derek will become president and chief operating officer. Over the next 2 years, he'll assume full control of all operations, with an eye toward eventual ownership transfer. Derek's wife Jessica actually squealed. My mother started clapping. My father held up his hand. There's more. I've also established a business development fund, $250,000, that Derek will manage to expand our holdings and explore new opportunities. This represents the family's future, and I'm confident in Derek's vision. Everyone was congratulating Derek. My mother was already talking about throwing a celebration dinner. Amanda looked pleased. She and Derek had always been close, and more money for him meant more money in the family ecosystem she benefited from. My father turned to me. Sarah, I know this might be hard to hear, but you have to understand business is complex. It requires a certain level of education and experience. Derek has an MBA from Harvard. He understands finance, operations, strategic planning. These things matter. I had an MBA from UC Davis. I'd never told him because he'd never asked what my degrees were. I want you to know you'll always be part of this family, he continued. And when things are more stable for you, we can talk about finding you a role. Maybe in administrative support or tenant relations. Something that plays to your strengths. I ran a company with 31 employees. We'd done $3.2 million in revenue the previous year. We were on track for $4.1 million this year. I'd managed projects across 7 states. I'd presented at industry conferences. I'd been interviewed for trade publications. My father thought I was qualified to answer phones for my brother. Derek, congratulations, I said. My voice was steady. That's quite an opportunity. Derek had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. Thanks, Sarah. I mean, like Dad said, when you're ready, there might be something. I appreciate that, I said. My daughter Emma sat next to me on the ottoman, quiet. She was 8 years old, smart enough to sense the dynamic in the room. The way everyone looked at me with a mixture of pity and slight embarrassment, like I was the family member who'd never quite figured it out. My mother brought out champagne. Moët and Chandon, $47 per bottle. Derek toasted to new chapters and family legacy. I sipped the champagne and made my decision. Thanksgiving was in 10 days. The whole family would be there, my parents, Derek's family, Amanda's family, plus assorted aunts, uncles, and cousins. 43 people total. My mother had been planning the menu for 6 weeks. That night, after I put Emma to bed, I called my attorney. Margaret Williamson, partner at Williamson & Associates, had been handling Meridian's legal work since 2021. Margaret, I need to accelerate something, I said. Remember when we discussed preparing a comprehensive portfolio document for potential investors? The full company overview with financials, project history, and growth projections? She asked. Yes. I need it ready by November 23rd, printed, bound, professional. And I need you to attend Thanksgiving dinner as my guest. There was a pause. Sarah, what are you planning? Bringing my work home for the holidays, I said. I spent the next 8 days preparing. I'd kept my professional life separate from my family for so long that merging them required strategy. This wasn't about gloating. It was about establishing reality. About making it impossible for them to keep seeing me as someone I'd never been. November 15th, I met with my accountant, Richard Park at Park Financial Services. I need a clean summary of Meridian's financial performance, I said. 3-year revenue progression, current assets, projected annual growth, employee count, client roster. 1 page, absolutely bulletproof numbers. Richard had been doing my books since I incorporated. He knew exactly what I was asking for. Planning to show someone what you've built? Something like that, I said. The document he prepared was elegant. Simple. Devastating. Meridian Sustainable Development Solutions, LLC Financial Summary, 2021 to 2024. Revenue progression. 2021, $890,000. 022, $1,840,000. 023, $3,200,000. 024, projected $4,100,000. Current assets, $1,840,000. Employees, 31 full-time. TIV clients, 47. Completed projects, 89. Project success rate, 98.8%. Industry certifications, Lead AP, Well AP, Fitwell Ambassador. Founder equity, 100%. I had it printed on cream cardstock with Meridian's letterhead, navy and forest green, professionally designed by a branding firm I'd paid $8,500 in 2022. November 18th, I went through my project portfolio and selected 12 key examples, before and after photos of buildings we'd transformed, client testimonials, certification documentation. I had them printed in a leather-bound presentation folder. Cost, $340 for rush printing and binding. November 20th, I met with Margaret at her office in downtown San Jose. Her corner office had a view of the city and shelves lined with legal references. "This is unusual," she said. "I've never been invited to a client's family Thanksgiving." "Consider it a professional engagement," I said. "I'm paying your hourly rate. $425 per hour, 3-hour minimum, plus travel time." She raised an eyebrow. "You're serious about this?" "My father just gave my brother control of an $8.7 million business because he assumed I was unqualified," I said. "Meanwhile, I've built a company worth more than his annual revenue from scratch in 4 years. And none of them have any idea. And you want me there when you tell them?" "I want a witness," I said. "Someone who can verify every number, every claim, every document. Someone they can't dismiss as being biased or emotional." Margaret smiled. "I'll bring my briefcase." The final piece fell into place on November 21st. My grandmother's attorney, Paul Hendricks from Hendricks and More, called me. "Sarah, I wanted to give you advance notice about something in your grandmother's will," he said. "There's a letter she left specifically for your daughter Emma. She was very insistent that Emma receive it on Thanksgiving Day and that it be read in front of the family." "What does it say?" I asked. "I'm not at liberty to discuss the contents," Paul said. "But your grandmother spent considerable time drafting it. She had specific instructions about the timing and the audience." Grandma Evelyn. Still looking out for me, even now. "I'll make sure Emma gets it," I said. November 22nd, the day before Thanksgiving, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went shopping for a new outfit. Not because I needed one, but because I wanted to look the part. I went to Nordstrom and spent $485 on a charcoal gray suit, structured blazer, perfectly tailored pants. Another $120 on a silk blouse the color of cream. $180 on low heels that were professional without being aggressive. The woman at the checkout asked if I was interviewing for a job. "Something like that," I said. That evening, I sat Emma down. "Tomorrow at Thanksgiving, Grandma Evelyn left you a special letter," I said. "When it's time, I'm going to ask you to read it out loud. Can you do that?" Emma nodded solemnly. She loved my grandmother. "What does it say?" "I don't know exactly," I said. "But I think it's going to surprise some people. Whatever happens, I need you to know that Mommy has been working very hard at something important. And tomorrow, some people are going to find out about it. It might be confusing or surprising, but everything is okay. Do you understand?" "Are we rich?" Emma asked. I laughed. "We're stable. We're secure. And we're going to be fine." "Is Grandpa going to be mad?" "Grandpa is going to be surprised," I said. "There's a difference." Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and clear. I dressed in my new suit while Emma put on her navy dress with the white collar, $68 from Janie and Jack, purchased the week before. I packed the leather portfolio, the financial summary, and a flash drive containing additional documentation into my work bag, a Tumi briefcase I'd purchased when Meridian hit its first $1 million in revenue. I also packed the envelope from Grandma Evelyn. Cream-colored, heavy paper, my grandmother's elegant cursive across the front, for Emma, to be opened on Thanksgiving 2024. Margaret met me in the driveway of my parents' house at 1:15 p.m. She was dressed in a navy suit with her hair pulled back, carrying a leather briefcase. She looked every inch the senior attorney she was. "Ready?" she asked. "I've been ready for 4 years," I said. We walked in together. Emma held my hand. The house was already full, voices from the dining room, the kitchen, the living room. The smell of turkey and my mother's famous stuffing made with $9 per pound artisanal sausage. My mother appeared in the hallway. She looked at Margaret with obvious confusion. Sarah, who's this? Mom, this is Margaret Williamson. She's joining us for dinner. I hope that's okay. I know you said we could bring guests. My mother had said that. She'd been hoping I might finally bring a boyfriend. Of course, my mother said, clearly trying to place Margaret. Are you a friend from? I'm Sarah's attorney, Margaret said pleasantly. The confusion deepened on my mother's face. Her attorney? Business attorney, Margaret clarified. We've been working together for several years now. I watched my mother try to process this. Why would I need a business attorney? Before she could ask, I moved past her toward the dining room. The table was set for 43. China that my parents used once a year, crystal glasses, cloth napkins in silver rings. My father stood at the head of the table in his Thanksgiving uniform, khakis and a sweater vest, looking like a stock photo of suburban success. Derek and Jessica were already seated near my father. Amanda and Craig had claimed spots on the other side. Various cousins, aunts, and uncles filled in the rest. And there, near the far end of the table, were 2 empty chairs. The last 2 chairs before the kitchen door. The least desirable spots, where you got bumped every time someone went to refill the water or bring out another dish. My mother guided me toward those chairs. Sarah, you and Emma can sit here. And your friend can sit with you. The placement was deliberate. The important people sat near my father. The family leaders. The successful ones. The rest of us filled in the gaps. Margaret glanced at me. I gave her a nearly imperceptible nod. Not yet. We sat. Emma climbed into her chair. Margaret placed her briefcase on the floor next to her seat with a quiet authority that made several people glance over. My father called for attention. Before we begin, I want to say how grateful I am to have the whole family together. This year has been one of significant transitions and exciting new directions. He launched into what was clearly a prepared speech about family legacy, the importance of tradition, and the business transition he'd announced 2 weeks earlier. Derek looked simultaneously proud and uncomfortable, aware that he was the golden child on display. Family businesses require vision, my father said. They require education, strategic thinking, and the ability to make difficult decisions. I'm confident that Derek embodies these qualities. My mother beamed. Several aunts and uncles nodded approvingly. Now, my father said, let's give thanks for the meal and for family. Everyone bowed their heads. My father said grace, the same one he'd said every Thanksgiving for 30 years. Then my mother started bringing out food. The turkey, glazed and perfect. Stuffing. Mashed potatoes. Green beans with almonds. Cranberry sauce from a $14 jar of artisanal cranberries from Whole Foods. Plates were filled. People began eating. Conversation hummed around the table, talk of Derek's transition timeline, Amanda's upcoming show at a gallery in Los Angeles, cousin Jennifer's new job at Google, Uncle Tom's recent vacation to Napa. No one asked me anything. I was invisible in my end-of-table seat, which was exactly where I'd been placed to be. We were 23 minutes into the meal when my mother turned to Emma. Sweetheart, are you hungry? There should be some leftover pasta in the refrigerator from last night if you'd prefer that. I know turkey can be a bit much for children. Emma looked confused. I like turkey. My mother smiled. Of course, dear. I just thought, well, your mother might not have, sometimes budget constraints. She was suggesting that Emma wasn't used to nice meals. That we couldn't afford real food at home. Emma eats very well, I said evenly. My father glanced down the table. Sarah, we're just trying to make sure she's comfortable. There's some leftover chicken and some sides in the kitchen if she'd rather have something simpler. Less formal. He wanted to send my daughter to eat in the kitchen. Away from the table. Because we were the poor relations who might not appreciate the Thanksgiving feast. The room got quieter. A few people had stopped eating, sensing the tension. Emma looked at me. I could see her trying to figure out what was happening. That's when my father said it. Sarah, it's fine if Emma eats in the kitchen. Your mother is a failure, so you eat like one. But we don't need to subject the child to sitting through a meal she's probably not accustomed to. The words hung in the air. Derek's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Amanda's eyes went wide. My mother looked mortified, not at what my father had said, but that he'd said it out loud in front of everyone. My daughter didn't cry. She was 8 years old, and she'd just been called a failure's daughter in front of 43 relatives. But she didn't cry. Instead, she quietly climbed down from her chair, walked over to where my work bag sat next to my briefcase, and pulled out the cream-colored envelope. She walked back to her seat, stood next to her chair, and said in a clear voice that carried across the entire dining room, "Grandma left me a letter that says I should read this at Thanksgiving dinner when the whole family is together." I watched my parents' faces go pale. Both of them. Simultaneously. Like someone had flipped a switch. My mother's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. My father's face drained of color starting at his forehead and spreading down. His mouth opened slightly. "Emma, maybe that should wait until after dinner," my mother said quickly. "Grandma said to read it when everyone was together," Emma said. "Everyone's together now." She opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, same cream color, my grandmother's handwriting in fountain pen ink. Emma began to read. "My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then I've passed on, and you're at Thanksgiving dinner with the family. I'm so sorry I can't be there with you. But I wanted to make sure you knew some important things about your mother." The room was completely silent now. Every person at that table was listening. "Your mother is the hardest working person I've ever known. For the past 4 years, she's been building a business, a very successful business, while everyone in this family assumed she was struggling. She never corrected them. She never bragged. She just kept working." My father tried to interrupt. "Emma, that's enough. Let her finish," Margaret said quietly. Her voice had the weight of professional authority. People listened. Emma continued reading. "I want you to know that your mother owns a company called Meridian Sustainable Development Solutions. Last year, her company made more than $3 million. She employs 31 people. She's transformed buildings across 7 states. And she did it all while being told by this family that she was a failure." My mother had gone from pale to red. "This is inappropriate." "Is it true?" Derek asked. He was looking at me now. Really looking at me for what might have been the first time in years. I met his eyes. "Yes. You own a company," my father said. His voice came out strange. "Higher than normal." "I do." "Worth $3 million?" Amanda asked. "Revenue," I corrected. $3.2 million in revenue last year. We're on track for 4.1 this year. I reached down and pulled out the financial summary Richard had prepared. I stood up, walked the length of the table, and placed it in front of my father. He stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. Derek leaned over to look. I watched his eyes scan the numbers. The revenue progression. The employee count. The client list. "This can't be real," my father said. Margaret stood up. "I'm Margaret Williamson, senior partner at Williamson & Associates. I've been Sarah's business attorney since 2021. Every number on that document is accurate and has been verified by certified public accountants. Meridian Sustainable Development Solutions is a fully registered S-corporation in good standing, with annual revenues exceeding $4 million and a current asset valuation of $1.84 million. The color had completely drained from my father's face again. He looked at the paper. At Margaret. At me. "You've been lying to us," my mother said. "I've never lied," I said. "You've never asked." "When you asked what I did, I said consulting. I consult on sustainable commercial property development. When you asked how work was going, I said it was going well. It was. You assumed I was failing. That was your choice. Why wouldn't you tell us?" Derek asked. He looked genuinely confused. "When would I have told you?" I asked. "At Christmas 2019 when Dad announced you were getting the family business because I wasn't serious enough? At Easter 2021 when Mom gave Amanda $75,000 and laughed at the idea that I could afford a condo? At the family meeting 2 weeks ago when Dad said I might be qualified to answer phones for you someday?" The room was silent. Several cousins were staring at their plates. "I have an MBA," I continued. "From UC Davis. I've had it since 2015. You never asked what degree I had. You assumed I didn't have one. My father's hand was shaking slightly. The paper trembled. An MBA? With a concentration in corporate finance and organizational management, I said. I graduated with a 3.8 GPA. I was on the dean's list. You didn't come to graduation. You were at Derek's business school networking event. Derek had the grace to look uncomfortable. I pulled out the leather portfolio, walked back to my father, placed it in front of him. This is a sample of Meridian's completed projects. 89 total. 98.8% success rate. We've achieved LEED certification on 63 buildings. Our clients include 3 major REITs, 7 regional developers, and 12 property management firms across the western United States. My father opened the portfolio, started looking through the photos, the documentation. His hands were shaking more now. The condo in Los Gatos, my mother said faintly. You said you were renting. You asked where I was living. I said I was in a place in the area. You assumed I was renting. I purchased it in March 2023 for $615,000. Cash sale. No mortgage. My mother's wine glass hit the table harder than she intended. Wine sloshed onto the tablecloth. That's not possible, my father said. On a consultant's salary. I haven't been a consultant in 3 years, I said. I'm the founder and CEO of my own company. I have 31 employees who depend on me. I manage multi-million-dollar projects. I've been interviewed by Greenbuild Magazine and Western Real Estate Journal. I spoke at the Sustainable Building Conference in San Francisco last year to an audience of 340 industry professionals. I pulled out my phone, brought up my LinkedIn profile, 2,400 followers, handed it to Derek. This is what I've been doing while you all thought I was figuring things out. Derek scrolled. I watched his face change as he read. Recommendations from clients. Posts about completed projects. Articles I'd written. Speaking engagements. Sarah, he said quietly. This is really impressive. Thank you, I said. My father was still staring at the financial summary. For $1 million in revenue. For 0.1 projected for this year, Margaret confirmed. The company is on track to exceed that projection based on current contract values and pipeline opportunities. And you employ. My mother couldn't finish the sentence. 31 people, I said. Full-time employees with benefits. Health insurance, 401k matching, paid time off. I established a profit-sharing plan last year. 7 of my employees have been with me for more than 2 years. 3 have been promoted from entry-level positions to senior roles. My Aunt Karen, sitting halfway down the table, spoke up. Sarah, I had no idea. Why didn't you say something? I tried, I said. Last year at Christmas, I mentioned I'd had a good year at work. Mom changed the subject to talk about Amanda's gallery showing. At Easter, I said I was working on a large project. Dad asked if I'd thought about going back to school for a real degree. At your birthday dinner in June, Aunt Karen, I mentioned I'd hired some new team members. You asked if that meant I was finally working somewhere permanent. The silence that followed was different. Uncomfortable. People were looking at their plates, at each other, anywhere but at me. You let us think you were struggling, my father said. His voice had changed. He sounded defensive now. You never corrected us. You never listened, I said. And you know what? It didn't matter. Because while you were all assuming I was failing, I was building something real. Something that's mine. Something no one can take away from me or give to someone else because they think I'm not worthy of it. I looked at Derek. You're getting an $8.7 million business that someone else built. Congratulations. I built mine from nothing. In 4 years. While working another job. While raising my daughter alone. While being told by this family that I was a failure. Derek couldn't meet my eyes. My father's face had gone from pale to red. That business is our family legacy. It's Grandpa's legacy, I said. That he built. That you inherited. Just like Derek is inheriting it from you. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't pretend it's the same as building something yourself. I pulled out one more document. The one I'd been saving. A printout from the California Secretary of State website showing Meridian's business registration. Filing date, April 15, 2020. For years and 7 months, I said. That's how long I've been running Meridian. In that time, I've gone from zero revenue to over $4 million annually. I've created 31 jobs. I've completed 89 projects. I've established myself as a recognized expert in sustainable commercial development. And I did it all while you told me I should go back to school and get a teaching degree. My mother started to cry. Not sad crying. Angry crying. You made us look foolish. I didn't make you do anything, I said. You made assumptions. I let you keep them. That was my choice. Just like it was your choice to never ask questions, never take interest, never consider that maybe I was exactly as successful as Derek and Amanda, just in a different way. Emma had finished reading the letter. She was holding it carefully, like the precious thing it was. The last gift from her great-grandmother. The letter says one more thing, Emma said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. It says, Emma, your mother is extraordinary. Don't ever let anyone make you forget that, including the people who are supposed to love her most. Emma folded the letter carefully. And then it says, P.S. Sarah, I'm proud of you. I always have been. My father's hands had dropped to his lap. The financial summary sat in front of him, the numbers undeniable. Derek had stopped scrolling through my LinkedIn and was just staring at the screen. My mother was gripping her napkin like it was the only solid thing in the room. Margaret stood up. For the record, I'm prepared to verify any aspect of Sarah's professional accomplishments. I have additional documentation in my briefcase, including articles of incorporation, tax returns, client contracts, and professional certifications. Everything she's told you today is accurate and verifiable. This is a family dinner, my father said weakly. Not a business meeting. You made it a business meeting 2 weeks ago, I said. When you announced Derek's promotion and said I might be qualified for administrative work someday. You made it about business. About who was worthy. About who had the education and experience to matter. So I'm showing you my qualifications. I gathered the documents. Put them back in my portfolio. I'm going to go now. Emma and I will have Thanksgiving at home. We'll be fine. We're always fine. Sarah, wait, my mother started. For what? I asked. For you to apologize for assuming I was a failure? For Dad to take back calling me one in front of my daughter? For someone to ask why I felt like I had to hide who I was from my own family for 4 years? No one answered. I'll send you the link to Meridian's website, I said. You can read about our projects. See the testimonials. Look at the before and after photos. It's all there. It's been there for years. You just never looked. I helped Emma down from her chair. Picked up my briefcase. Margaret gathered her things. We walked toward the door. Behind us, the dining room was absolutely silent. 43 people, and no one said a word. At the door, I turned back. Oh, and Dad? That $3,000 check you sent me last year when you thought I'd been laid off? I donated it to a scholarship fund for women in business at UC Davis. In Grandma Evelyn's name. They're giving out the first scholarship next fall. Full ride. For a woman pursuing an MBA in sustainable business practices. My father's face went pale again. Then red. Then pale. We walked out. Margaret drove behind me back to my house in Los Gatos. The house my family didn't know I owned. The house I'd purchased with money from the business they didn't know I'd built. Emma was quiet in the car. After a few minutes, she said, Grandpa was really wrong about you, wasn't he? Yes, I said. He was. Are we really okay? She asked. Emma, we're more than okay, I said. We're successful. We're stable. We're secure. And we're free. Free from what? From needing them to see me clearly, I said. I spent years hoping they'd notice. Hoping they'd ask. Hoping they'd see me as I actually was. But they couldn't, because they'd decided who I was a long time ago. Today, I stopped hoping. We pulled into my driveway. The 3-bedroom condo with the updated kitchen and the view of the hills. The place I'd purchased at age 36. With cash. From the business I'd built while my family pitted me. Margaret came in. We ordered Chinese food, $67 worth from the good place downtown. We ate it on my couch while Emma watched a movie. We didn't talk about what had happened. We just existed in the space of having done something that couldn't be undone. Margaret left around 8. They're going to call, she said at the door. Probably tomorrow. They'll want to talk. To explain. To make this make sense somehow. What should I say? I asked. Whatever you want, she said. That's the beautiful thing. You don't need anything from them anymore. The settlement came 3 weeks later. Not a legal settlement, a family one. My father called. Asked if we could meet. Just the two of us. We met at a coffee shop, Blue Bottle Coffee, $8 lattes, neutral territory. He looked older than I'd ever seen him look. Tired. I owe you an apology, he said. Yes, I agreed. You do. I didn't see you clearly. I thought because you didn't talk about work, didn't show us what you were doing, that meant you weren't doing anything significant. I was doing something significant, I said. I just wasn't performing it for you. He nodded slowly. Derek told me he looked at your company's website, looked at your projects. He said what you've built is more impressive than anything he's done because you started from nothing. Derek was honest with himself, I said. That's good. Your mother wants you to come to Christmas, he said. She's having a hard time with this. A hard time with what? I asked. With being wrong? With having dismissed me for years? With having to recalibrate her understanding of her own daughter? All of it, he admitted. I'll think about Christmas, I said. But Dad, I need you to understand something. I'm not coming back to be the family failure who got a lucky break. I'm not coming back to be tolerated or pitied or praised like a child who finally did something right. If I come back, it's as who I actually am. A successful business owner. A single mother who's created a stable life for her child. Someone who built something real and valuable. Can you see me that way? He was quiet for a long time. I'm trying to, he said finally. Then try harder, I said. Because I'm not changing who I am to make you comfortable anymore. I left him there with his coffee and his discomfort and his belated recognition. 2 months later, Derek called. Asked if we could have lunch. We met at a sandwich shop in downtown San Jose. He ordered a turkey club. I ordered soup. The business transition isn't going well, he said. Dad's processes are outdated. The properties need significant updates to stay competitive. I've been looking at sustainable retrofitting options. I didn't say anything. Just waited. I know this is awkward, he continued. But I wondered if Meridian takes on client projects of this scope. Dad's portfolio is 14 properties across 3 counties. They all need energy efficiency updates, LEED certification potential, modern amenities. You want to hire me, I said. I want to hire your company, he clarified. If you're interested. I know we'd need a formal RFP process and competitive bidding, but email me the specifications, I said. We'll put together a proposal. He looked relieved. Thank you. Derek, this is business, I said. We're not doing this because we're family. If we take the project, it's because it makes sense for Meridian and because we can deliver value. Understood. Understood, he said. Meridian submitted a proposal 3 weeks later. We won the contract. $1.7 million over 2 years. Professional relationship. Clear boundaries. No family discount. I saw my parents at Christmas. It was awkward. Careful. My mother kept trying to compliment me in ways that felt performative. My father asked questions about my business like he was reading from a script. But they tried. Emma got presents that were thoughtful instead of pitying. No one assumed we couldn't afford nice things. It wasn't perfect. It probably never would be. But it was different. For 6 months, everything was stable. Meridian grew. We hired 4 more employees. We won 3 major contracts. I spoke at 2 industry conferences. Emma finished 3rd grade with straight A's. My family and I maintained a careful distance, holidays, occasional dinners, phone calls that were polite rather than warm. The wound was too fresh. The recognition too new. We were all learning how to relate to each other when the fundamental dynamic had shifted. Then yesterday, everything changed again. My phone rang at 3:47 p.m. Paul Hendricks, my grandmother's attorney. Sarah, I need to speak with you about the will execution, he said. There's been a development. What kind of development? I asked. Your parents have filed a formal challenge. They're claiming that your grandmother was unduly influenced in the months before her death. They're specifically citing your Sunday visits and suggesting that you manipulated her into writing that letter to Emma. I felt something cold settle in my chest. The letter that told the truth about my business? They're arguing that you used your relationship with your grandmother to turn her against the family. They're requesting that the probate court review the entire will, including the distribution of her estate. How much was she leaving me? I asked. I'd never actually asked before. The house in Palo Alto, Paul said. Current market value approximately $2.1 million. Plus her investment accounts, roughly $340,000. The bulk of her estate. Your parents assumed they were getting most of it. The will says otherwise. I sat down slowly. Grandma Evelyn. Even in death, she'd seen me clearly. What do I need to do? I asked. We'll fight it, Paul said. But Sarah, this could get ugly. They're prepared to make claims about your character, your relationship with your grandmother, your motives. Are you ready for that? I thought about the Thanksgiving dinner. The pale faces. The documents spread on the table. The truth finally spoken after years of silence. Yes, I said. I'm ready. I hung up, opened my safe, pulled out a folder I'd kept since October 2023. Inside were 3 years of weekly calendars showing every Sunday visit to my grandmother. Receipts from the tea shop, $24 per tin, purchased monthly like clockwork. Photographs of us together. Cards she'd sent me with handwritten notes about how proud she was. Emails we'd exchanged about Meridian's growth. And one more thing. Something I'd almost forgotten about until this moment. A recording. From our last conversation in August 2023, 2 months before she died. She'd asked me to record it. Just in case, she'd said. Just in case anyone questions why I'm making the decisions I'm making. Her voice, clear and strong despite her age. I'm leaving the house to Sarah because she's the only one who built something herself. Because she worked without recognition. Because she understood what it means to create value rather than inherit it. And because she's the one who took time to sit with me every Sunday for 3 years, not out of obligation but because she wanted to. I'd been waiting for this. I called Margaret. They're challenging the will. I heard, she said. Paul already contacted me. Sarah, this could take months. Maybe a year. They're going to make this difficult. Let them try, I said. I have documentation of every visit, every conversation. I have witnesses who saw our relationship. I have the recording. What recording? Margaret asked. The one where Grandma Evelyn explains exactly why she made her decisions, I said. Dated 2 months before she died. Clear, competent, and absolutely devastating to their claim. There was a pause. Then Margaret laughed. You really are your grandmother's granddaughter. Yes, I said. I really am. So, what do you think? Did my parents go too far or was I justified? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for updates on the Will Challenge.